Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Kono Loki. And Kono Loki has this question. Kono Loki would like to know if I could recommend some magical traditions that are not matrifocal as Wicca tends to be. And Kono Loki tells us that their experience of Wicca in their area and most paganism in their area is very matriarchal, and they feel that it tends to relegate men to a very subservient position and compares the high priests in the area to glorified altar boys. And in answering this question, there are several ways that I could approach it, and I think I'm going to approach it in all of them. I'm going to start by simply answering the question. There are many magical traditions that are not particularly matrifocal, and in some cases not at all matrifocal. And to give you a few examples, there's Hermeticism, there's alchemy, there's Rosicrucianism, there's Golden Dawn, there's Thelema, all kinds of ceremonial magical traditions which do not tend to be particularly matrifocal or particularly woman-dominated, although most of them today do provide an equal place for women, but they don't tend to be woman-dominated. In addition, you have things such as the various paths of Germanic spirituality that style themselves heathenry, which do feature goddesses and priestess roles for women in many cases, but are certainly not matrifocal. Also, Druidry and other kinds of pagan revivalism are very often not matrifocal, though again, they will tend to provide an egalitarian place for women in their clergy in most, but not necessarily all cases. So there are a lot of choices out there if you're looking for a pagan path or a magical path that is not particularly matrifocal. Now, that's the first part of my answer, and the second part of my answer is going to go to Kono Loki's experience of Wicca. And I have no question that this is what Kono Loki has experienced in their local area, but it certainly isn't true of the Wicca movement as a whole. There are, to be sure, certain traditions of Wicca that are so matriarchal as to exclude males from any real role or even any presence, and there certainly is a place for those. There are also many others that are very egalitarian in character, and I would say that perhaps Kono Loki simply has not seen these. Certainly in much of eclectic Wicca, there is a strong presence for men in all levels of priesthood, including heads of tradition. I know many temples that are headed by high priests and many very competent high priesthood. Particularly in my own tradition, the Corellian tradition, we emphasize egalitarianism in terms of the various genders, and regardless of how one identifies in terms of gender, one can reach whatever level of priesthood one desires. And I would point out that there are very many women who head Wiccan traditions, including very famous ones like Selena Fox, Starhawk, who I don't know if you'd exactly term her the head of the tradition, but to all intents and purposes, Zuzana Budapest, Belladonna Laveau, and many others. But there are also many men who head Wiccan traditions, including myself, Christopher Penczak, Paul Bayerl, and if we widen the discussion to the general pagan community, we have Oberon Zell, and many other prominent male leaders. So I would say that what is common in Kono Loki's community is common in that community perhaps, but not representative of the movement as a whole. The Wicca movement is very diverse and runs the gamut of different kinds of expressions. And certainly there are many Wiccan traditions where men are very welcome and would not necessarily be described as matrifocal in character, but egalitarian. And the third answer I'm going to make is not necessarily directed specifically at Kono Loki, but at many different things I've seen over the years, and that is that I think that the magical community as a whole suffers from a kind of tunnel vision where people think that what they have experienced directly is all there is in the community. And even though there may be examples in great evidence around them, they somehow seem not to notice them or not to credit them. I've seen a lot of people who will try to insist that their way is the only way, even when it's not even the majority practice. And their problem seems to simply be they've never been exposed to anything else. And what I would say to anyone watching this is realize that this is a very large, very diverse community. And the worst mistake you can make is thinking you know everything about it. There are more permutations of magical and pagan practice and even Wiccan practice than I think any one person is even aware of, because there's simply that many. And so always keep an open mind that what you've seen is simply what you've seen, and by no means all that is there. And I think that's a very important thing for us to be aware of. Now, of course, everyone can and should have their preferences, but that doesn't mean it's the only thing that exists or the only way it can be done. So these would be my thoughts. I hope you find them helpful, and until next time, may your blessed be.